Growing your own food is hard. It takes up too much time and costs a lot of money. That is the main complaint I hear from people when I mention to them gardening. So today I want to introduce to you an alternative method of growing your own food, the food forest. We're going to compare it to traditional gardening so you can decide which one is right for you. Hi, I'm Christina with Forever Food Forest, a channel where I explore ways of growing food without the use of herbicides, pesticides, or commercial fertilizers. And instead, I rely on permaculture gardening principles and other natural farming techniques to grow food that's good for the garden and good for the planet. So what is a food forest? A food forest is a garden, but not every garden is a food forest. And here are some key differences. A food forest takes its design cue from nature. Just like in a forest, you have a variety of plants that live together and form symbiotic relationships. It's like taking companion gardening to the next level. For example, instead of growing corn in rows, in a food forest we grow it in mounds along with its other two sisters, beans and squash. And the three plants grown together nourish each other. The corn provides a natural trellis for the beans. The beans fix nitrogen into the soil for the corn, and the squash provides ground cover, shielding the soil from the sun and preventing water loss. Well, here we have lots of trees, papaya and banana. We have an understory layer of blueberries, goji berries, and what is this? Sugarcane. And as ground cover, we use sweet potatoes, strawberry, and peanuts, depending on the season. And incorporating a ground cover will also reduce the amount of weeding that you have to do. And in a food forest, every plant serves a purpose, even weeds. Weeds are excellent at accumulating nutrients. They also thrive in harsh environments, which makes them perfect for making your own fertilizer. And if you want to learn how to do that, I will link that video somewhere at the end. The main focus in a food forest is on perennials because you only plant them once and they continue to produce year after year. However, there is a place for self-seeding annuals, and one of my favorites are Everglades tomatoes. I never planted this here. This is an Everglades tomato. It's an excellent variety for growing in Florida. It's super low maintenance, and it's kind of the epitome of the idea of the food forest because it is an annual, but it comes back year after year, and it self-seeds really easily. It's very low maintenance, and they do really well in heat and our Florida soils. They don't require any fertilization. It's borderline a weed in the way that it grows. The only problem you will have is that they will take over your garden. So it's very important to prune them back, but you will have an abundance of tomatoes, and you will definitely have enough to share with your neighbors as well as the birds. And the tomatoes are absolutely delicious. They're really tiny cherry tomatoes. They have a slightly salty, mildly acidic flavor profile. Every time I bring them to a picnic, they're always the winner when it comes to taste. Now, a food forest is going to require an initial investment of time, because it takes time to establish all of your plants and get them to a stage where they are producing. Another characteristic of a food forest is that it focuses on closing the gap, which means that anything that comes out of the soil gets returned back to it. And this essentially eliminates the need for commercial fertilizers, mulches, and helps save water. And now we have free mulch. And once established, a food forest requires very little maintenance and essentially takes care of itself. But there are some disadvantages. One of them being that you can expect it to take anywhere from 3 to 6 years until you start seeing results. But once it starts producing, each year you're going to have a bigger and bigger yield. And while a food forest takes on a holistic approach, traditional gardening focuses more on a specialized and controlled environment. In a traditional garden, plants are often organized in groups or rows. Oftentimes, plants are grown in raised garden beds filled with compost or potting mix. And if you live in an area that does have good soil, they can be grown directly in ground. However, they're always grown in an assigned area specifically for those plants. Corn goes here, tomatoes go here, and they can never overlap. In a traditional garden, specific needs of each individual plant can be met by controlling irrigation, soil type, as well as nutrient needs. And since most traditional gardening focuses on annuals, you can harvest food in as little as 3 months from the time that you start your garden. A food forest or a garden, how do you decide which one is right for you? So there are a few things that you need to consider. First one is time. How much time do you want to commit to growing your own food, and how soon do you want to harvest it? Keep in mind that a traditional garden is going to require a little bit more maintenance since it relies on you to meet all of its needs. Whereas a food forest, although it takes a little bit longer to establish, once established, it pretty much sustains itself. The second one is space. Space is a huge consideration, but you don't need a huge amount of space to grow your own food. Gardening is an excellent option if you have a small side yard or a balcony because you can create a controlled environment and still grow food in a small space. Whereas a food forest requires a little bit more surface area, but not that much more. Our food forest is located on a 1/4 acre and it provides us with abundance of food every season. And more does not necessarily equal better because the more space you have, the more maintenance you will need to do. And that brings me to the second question. How much time do you want to commit to your food growing endeavor? Like I said earlier, if you choose to start a garden, you can harvest food in as little as 3 months. Another thing you want to consider is the climate. Food forests thrive in subtropical and tropical regions with year-round growing seasons. And last thing you want to consider is your personality type. If you're more of a structured type A person who likes order, then a traditional garden is going to be perfect for you because it allows you to have full and complete control over the growing environment. However, if you're more laid back and you enjoy going with the flow and waking up with the sun, then a food forest is going to be a lot more your vibe. It's time for a pop quiz. Is this a food forest or a garden? At first looks, we have the organized garden beds, which might lead us to believe that it is in fact a garden. However, let's take a closer look. Upon closer inspection, we notice that we have some perennials here, like this longevity spinach. Right here we have some sweet potatoes that have been used as ground cover and they're making a beautiful comeback. And we're utilizing a lot of the mulch. But now as we look over here, we notice that we have some plants here that could be considered annuals. So this is a nasturtium, and then we have lots and lots of tomato plants. However, spoiler alert, all of these were self-seeded from a previous season. Sweet potatoes, you plant them once in Florida, and if you don't dig all of them out, they will keep coming back year after year. And they're such a great low maintenance, heat tolerant crop that it just makes sense to grow them. And these plants with white flowers might look like weeds. However, they are actually very beneficial to our landscape. They're called Bidens pilosa, and they have medicinal properties as well as being great for attracting pollinators. They're also edible. Another surprise right here. I did not plant these, but I did accidentally drop some cowpea seeds in this spot. And looks like we're going to have some cowpeas. So I'll give them some support, because everybody needs a little support from time to time. Cowpeas are also known as black-eyed peas, and they're an excellent source of protein. You can also use them for building your soil because they are a nitrogen fixer. Okay, looks like I need one more stake. This is the tiniest little avocado tree. Granted, it is a dwarf variety, but it has not grown much in the last year. Oh, hello there, little lizard. Ah! Are you eating bugs? You're eating tasty bugs? You're doing a great job. I don't see any bugs. So I don't want you to leave this video thinking that you gotta go one way or another, food forest or traditional garden, because the best approach is actually a blend of both worlds. Like right here, we do have some raised garden beds, and we also have a bunch of perennials. Some of them are grown in containers because our water level is so high that we can't really grow many trees here without them getting root rot. So we just had to find ways to go around that. And that's what I want you to take away from this, is that everything that I show you and teach in this video, you can adapt it to your gardening style. And I don't want you to be locked in to thinking that my way is one way. My way is one of many ways. And by us teaching each other, we can all grow better together. So if you want to learn more about how to start a food forest, check out some of my other videos where I cover soil building and fertilizer making. If you're new, subscribe. And if you like this kind of content and you want to see more of it, give me a thumbs up. Until next time, grow your food.